Well, good afternoon, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Free-4-All-Friday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior, fighting for your right just to be an American. It is January 19th in the year of our Lord 2018. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful, chilly Central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And I do apologize for the couple minutes late start. Technical difficulties. I was trying to add a program over the weekend so I could use the Facebook app on Windows 10. I could use the Facebook app on Windows 10. I'm using the Facebook app, and for some reason the Facebook app will not pick up any of the spell checkers I have that are either in Firefox or in my Open Office. And so it suggested I download a little app. Do not do it. It's called Tiny Spell was what was recommended. Don't do it, folks. I was having all sorts of problems this morning with copy and pasting from my clipboard, which I'm still trying to get finished up now so I can do the show here. I had to uninstall it and then restart the machine to make sure everything was out of it. And then finally I was able to come over here and get everything set up on my Firefox over here on my production computer. So you could actually watch these, or actually see what I'm reading along, as it were, with me. So I did have a little bit of technical difficulties today. So please bear with me. I'm still loading this up. While I'm getting all these loaded up on my Firefox over my production computer, today's show I entitled Why the Constitution Matters, DACA, Dreamers, and Immigration. And they are planning on, the Democrats now, and look, I'm not a Democrat or Republican, so I really don't have a dog in this hunt here. Either way, to me, shutting the government down, one of the shutdowns for the government should be that all the bureaucracies are shut down, all the staffers for the congressmen, both in the House and the Senate, are put on furlough, as well as everybody else, would be my idea of a government shutdown. And this would actually cause them to, the Democrats anyway, it's amazing to me, folks. The Democrats are the ones that are threatening to shut down, and the lamestream media is all over this saying, oh, this is a Republican shutdown, this is a Republican shutdown, when wasn't it just a little while ago, a few years back, where they were threatening to shut down the government under President Barack Obama, and it was the Republicans that were the sticking point for the shutdown, yet it was the Republicans' fault back then. But now it's the Democrats who are holding things up and are going to cause the government shutdown, but it's still the Republicans' fault. Republicans in Congress, Republican president. I don't know how that actually works, folks, or I really don't. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and this is why. We're not going to go over this. I have some small videos I want to finish up today, and I might even be doing some videos tomorrow in the studio, because I am caught up with all my other secular work in the house. With the furnace, I put a little condensing pump on the furnace itself, and because I had like a 2-gallon bucket that I was having to dump almost every day. I cannot believe how much condensation comes out of that propane furnace. It's a very high efficient furnace in that, and so there's a lot of condensation that comes back through the vent pipe, the exhaust pipe on it, and it goes down through the system and through a hose in the bottom in the bucket. And there was, with my fibromyalgia, sometimes I'd forget to check that, and my wife doesn't know what was going on with it, or she said she would have helped me check it. So again, it's I got that put on, and now I don't have to worry about the basement floor getting wet because I forgot to check the bucket. The pump's working great. I was doing some other things around the house the past couple days. So I'm going to get caught up on videos this afternoon and hopefully tomorrow. But I have been watching this drama unfold today. I don't have. I should get a. Let me get my CNS News up on my. I keep forgetting what I call each one of these computers. The one I'm actually, which has all my slides and everything on it, my webcam controls, are on what I call a production computer. And then I have my streaming computer over to my extreme right, your extreme left, and then I have where I actually set the show up. It's not the production computer, but it's where I got all my show notes, and I do the initial research on this other computer because it has a huge hard drive on it. It's got a terabyte hard drive on it, so I got plenty of room in there for documents and that. I don't see any. Let me see if I can get over here to DuckDuckGo and get on the news. I don't see anything yet. There is saying 26 minutes ago, White House to give briefing on potential government shutdown. Let me just open that up. Hopefully I don't get a... Yeah, they don't talk about it. They talk about what's essential services are going to be open, but they don't really get into it. Like I said, right now it's not real important for me to tell you that because you can see the news too. But the reason behind the shutdown is what I want to deal with: DACA, the Dreamers, and immigration, and some things that Cory Booker, that guy is a piece of work. I'm telling you what. The way he, and I don't have her name in front of me, like I said, I'm doing some other videos that he'll be in. The way he yelled at the lady that's in charge of the Department of Homeland Security in open session, not in the open session of the Senate, but in this open session, this hearing. I'm telling you what. If he'd have talked to my wife or my sister or my daughter that way, senator or not, they'd have had to have the security guards there. I'd have had to go up and slap him. He was totally ignorant. And I'm not going to go back over, like I said, I'm not going to go back over that here now because that's not what I want to get into today. But that was all part of this whole Dreamer and DACA debate, the deferred, this deferral program that President Obama unconstitutionally signed into it with an executive order with a reauthorization date put in it into the next presidency. President Trump and his team looked at that and said, this is unconstitutional for me to continue this executive order. Therefore, I'm not going to reauthorize the executive order and put the issue into Congress where it should have been to begin with. And President Trump and his team are absolutely right. Constitutionally, the president has no business dealing anything with the Dreamers or DACA or anything because that's creating law. And last time I read my Constitution, which wasn't too long ago, if you go over to Article 1, Section 1, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. And the regressive left is just up in arms about this whole thing. And so what they're doing, and what President Trump and his team, I don't think they've come out and said this specifically, and if they did, I missed it, and I apologize for it. But the way they're acting is the way they should be acting. They want the DACA question in a separate bill. They don't want it tied to any other bill. He threw it back to Congress. Congress is supposed to deal with it. And it seems to me that the Republicans, the main sticking point of the Republicans is that the Democrats in Congress want to hitch it to the spending bill. Right now we're still operating under a CR, continuing resolution, with the budget, so we can keep the government funded. And today's the deadline for that. And the Republicans aren't budging on this. as far as adding this to the budget. They want to do this in a clean, separate bill, which I agree with them. I think that's the way it should be argued on both floors of the House and the Senate, and it should be determined on its own. It should not be tied to a spending bill. No immigration other than like authorizing the funding for the wall in a spending bill. That's where it should be. But this DACA is something different. And I have some articles in here from the Heritage Foundation. Don't believe the myths about the dreamers by Hans von Spakovsky over at Heritage Foundation. I have another one here. Why Democrats Sabotage DACA Compromise by Eddie Zipperer. I like that name, Zipperer. He's a political science professor, and he's got an article over to Daily Caller, and both these were posted this month. And again, there's a lot of myths floating around about these dreamers and DACA. There are a lot of Cory Booker, and I'll read the article about this. Cory Booker calls illegal immigrants Americans. Honestly, I don't say this lightly, and I don't say that there's nobody in the Republican Party that acts like Democrats, but Democrats they're acting like criminals because they're complicit with the criminality that's going on in the United States with these illegal immigrants. It amazes me. I mean, it amazes me to no end. The lengths that the regressive left in this country will go to try to destroy America because they don't like what's going on in America. They don't like the freedom and the liberties that our predecessors fought and died for in this country. I'm talking going clear back to the Revolutionary War and before everything that led up to the Revolutionary War, where we won our independence, we won our freedom and our liberties. And the left has, under Woodrow Wilson in the early 1900s, has redefined what liberty and freedom is. And when they redefine that, what they're telling you is your liberty and your freedom comes from government. Woodrow Wilson did more damage to our constitutional republic than any other president in the history of our country. Woodrow Wilson was an intellectual. I'm not saying he wasn't smart, but I'm sort of along the same lines as country comedian Jerry Clower when he said there's some individuals out there that are educated beyond their intelligence. And I think Woodrow Wilson was one of these guys. And he redefined what liberty and freedom is. And what he did, and this is so subtle, people don't realize it sometimes, but this change is so subtle, it's almost a trap. It's almost like a hidden trap, where our freedoms and liberties rightly come from God or natural law. That we as individuals, as sovereign individuals, we had rights and liberty before government ever stepped foot on this continent. People have always come before government. And when I try to espouse this with some of these folks, these regressives, and I have to use this term because they call themselves progressive, but yet they want to haul us back into history and lock us into a failed political philosophy that has killed more people than anything else in the world. And that's called socialism. And I don't care if your socialism is fascist or communist. They're all three. If we had a three-sided coin, they'd be the same. They'd be a different side of the same coin. Because they're all authoritarian governmental schemes. And one's one step below the other. You have fascism, where it's the state control of the economy through legislation and bureaucracies. You have socialism, where it takes it one step further, where you have state-owned businesses. You don't have private industry anymore. The state owns it and the state controls it. And then you have the last step that goes into communism, because if without total control in a planned economy under fascism or socialism, without total control of the people, it never works according to their ideology. So we have to control the people, what they consume and what they can or can't do, what they can or can't say. You know, they don't have freedom of speech under fascism, socialism, or communism. They don't have the freedoms that we enjoy here, the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, right to redress our grievances to their government. Under any of those three systems, we don't have that. If we're under fascism, socialism, or government, folks that have lived underneath that don't have that. The government cannot countenance competition. And so Woodrow Wilson and the regressives, they called them the progressive era. I'll just keep that term because that's what most people understand. But understand me, when I say progressive, I actually mean regressive. During the progressive era, Woodrow Wilson and the progressives, and you know, it was a long string of them since Woodrow Wilson. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was of the same mind as Woodrow Wilson, and he just took Woodrow Wilson's ideas to their logical conclusion as far as government control. FDR was one of the most socialist presidents we ever had in our country. With all his big government schemes to bring us out of the Depression, which was caused by the government to begin with. So the government causes a problem and creates a problem. Then people want the government to fix it when the government was the ones that created it to begin with. And there was a lot of debate in the government at the time what actually caused the Great Depression. And so they fundamentally changed the idea of where we get our rights from, where we get our freedom and liberties from. And this has filtrated down through the universities, through colleges. I deal with folks almost on a daily basis when I'm talking to them on Facebook or Twitter that have no clue about our Constitution, have no clue that we're even a republic. When you say that we're a constitutional republic, it's like you just caught a deer in the headlights, because they have no clue what you just said. Because all they've known since 1913 on is that, no, we're actually a democracy. We're actually a democracy. And we've come to the point today where we have an open socialist that's been elected to office from Vermont in the form of Bernie Sanders. He's a democratic socialist, which means you can vote for socialism. And I'm telling you, folks, there's so many people out there that believe that's what we have to do to just change things, that we can just vote these things into law, even though it's strictly forbidden for the federal government to touch any of these issues that are state issues that we're talking about, except for immigration. Immigration is in Article 1, Section 8, as far as naturalization laws go. And along with naturalizing citizens, you have to figure out a system of how many you're going to let into the country, what they have to do to get over here to the country, visas and all that kind of stuff. And that naturally goes along with that. Now, there are some libertarians out there that don't agree with that idea, but this is the law we have. This is the law we're working with right now. And the biggest problem that I've run up against is these folks have this idea that since the Constitution is so old, over 200 years old, and those guys that wrote the Constitution are dead and gone, this is such a new era that we're living in, the Constitution doesn't matter anymore. And so we don't have to adhere to it. Now, I would like them, and they never explain themselves. They just put that out there as if that's the end of the argument. And I'd love to see them argue it before some intellectuals out there that know better. I would like them to go to court and argue saying, well, the Constitution doesn't matter anymore, which is the law for the federal government. The states created the federal government and established it through the Constitution, and the Constitution actually sets up the limits on the federal government, although we've blown them out of the water years ago. And it's okay because we're social democrats, and the Constitution doesn't matter because it's so old. And my one question to these folks that they never answer, they never answer. And this frustrates me to no end that they will not, these progressives will not answer direct questions. I said, then why don't you just have a constitutional convention and get rid of it? And they never answer, and I always answer for them because you know you couldn't do it. You know that you could not get rid of the Constitution. Then my next question is, why don't you go through the amendment process? Now, they'll answer that. Again, they'll tell you that the Constitution's too old and we shouldn't have to, or, oh, so you're saying everything that we want the federal government to do, and it's not in your precious Article 1, Section 8, that we have to put a constitutional amendment up for all the states to vote on it to get it passed in to the Constitution so the government can have that power to govern over that. And I said, oh, you got it right. One of the few times you get something right. And as soon as I say that, oh, Katie barred the door. Katie barred the door. The insults come. The foul language, the names, the foul name calling, the perversions that they want people to perform. They just come blowing out of the woodwork. Because they don't understand. They were never taught what the Constitution is. They were never taught that we're a constitutional republic. And then there's folks that are my age. This one guy I was talking to is 52 years old. And when I came up through school and graduated in 1980, the Department of Education hadn't got into full swing yet. I'm sort of pre-Department of Education, and I got a well-rounded high school education. And we were taught about the government. We were taught about, I went through 4 quarters of government in our school. We were taught about the Constitution. We were taught that we're a constitutional republic. We were taught about the House, taught about the Senate, taught about the President, taught about the judicial system. On basic terms, they didn't get into constitutional law, which only looks at, and this is a funny thing, constitutional law to me would mean that you are an expert on the Constitution. But I have it on good authority from some constitutional lawyers who argue before the Supreme Court, and an acquaintance of mine, Kerry Morgan, out of Indiana, back in the day on Blog Talk Radio when I used to be part of some different talk shows on there. He explained to me they never cracked open the Constitution in the constitutional law, degree. It was all talking about precedents based on the Constitution, but they never once studied the Constitution in those constitutional classes for lawyers. And I was like, well, what's the sense in that? And he goes, exactly, Dan. So they don't know. And the funny thing is they don't know what they don't know. They've been taught that this is a democracy, that we can just vote on everything. And Barack Obama did no favors to the Constitution. I got a pen and I got a phone. We'll just violate the Constitution and start putting out all these unconstitutional executive orders, and which could rise, depending on how far he goes with it, to an impeachable offense. I'm not going to get all into that. But Congress did nothing to stop President Obama. When it was still in the Democrats' hands, they didn't do anything to stop his unconstitutional executive orders. Then when it switched over to Republican hands, the Republicans did nothing either to stop him. And so what is the country to think? The country, rightfully, because of the examples that our leaders in the country set, they rightfully got the idea that the president's allowed to do anything he wants. We elected him on this platform, and he can carry out his platform even though it goes against the supreme law of the land as far as the Constitution for the federal government. And make no mistake about it. If it's enumerated power in the Constitution, then the supremacy clause kicks in, and the federal government is supreme because of that enumerated power. And one of those is immigration, and California is going to get in a lot of trouble here. The Attorney General of California said he's going to arrest any employer in the state of California who cooperates with ICE agents and federal agencies as far as immigration. And he said he's going to arrest them. And my comment on Facebook, the first person he arrests, if he arrests one person, the next person who should be arrested is the AG of California for impeding federal investigations, impeding, lawful prosecution of federal law in this regard. California, and New Jersey's no different. New Jersey's going to go right down the same sinkhole as California. And I got some good news about that. So I've been rambling on for long enough. Let's get on with the show. Today's show is being brought to you by the Dan Clement Store, or the Dan Clement Show Cafe Press Store. You go to the DanClementShow.com and click on, it's on the main menu. It says TDCS, Cafe Press. Press on it, it'll take you right over to the Dan Clement Show store over there. I have t-shirts for men and women. I have a hoodie, I have a hat, I have a couple coffee mugs on there. The ceramic mug's beautiful. I got one I used when I was back, when the show used to be Back to Basic. I got one made up. It doesn't look as good as this one does, but the cups are great. It's a 16-ounce coffee cup. And that's that's the smallest coffee cup you should ever use, is a 16-ounce. I also have a mouse pad in there. So if you want me to do something else in there, want me to put something else, send me an email. Go over to the DanClementShow.com and click on the contact button on the main menu and shoot me a message. Say, hey, Dan, I want you to see about putting something like this up in the store, and I'll see if I can't get it done for you now. Because you know what? It's all about what you want, and if you want it and buy it, then it just helps us to fund this show even more. Today's daily Bible reading is out of the book of Romans, chapter 12, verses 9 through 13. Let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. There's a lot of things we as Christians are supposed to be doing. And we're supposed to be doing these every single day. And he's talking about how we treat one another. And in treating one another this way, we also, that overflows into outside the four walls of our church building that we locally meet in, into the community. We treat other people with respect. And I'm going to get into that a little bit when we talk about DACA, and I'll tell you exactly how I think it should go. I don't know if it's going to do it this way, but I think it should go this way. And I think it's the best, in my opinion. And right now on this show, my opinion is the only one that counts. This is the way we should go with this. Our quote meal today comes from a gentleman named Horace. Why do you hasten to remove anything which hurts your eye, while if something affects your soul, you postpone the cure until next year? While if something affects your soul, you postpone the cure until next year. Got to think about that, folks. You really got to think about this. And Wes McAdams over at radicallychristian.com posted this on the 17th of this month. 2 Corinthians 5:10, re-examine. Appear before the judgment seat. It's a good article. It's a good article. I think people take this, again, out of context, as too many people are wont to do. Too many people are wont to do. So please go over and read this article. It's well referenced. He cites his Bible verses. This is something that some of my Baptist friends on Facebook refuse to do when they say, well, this is what the Bible says, and they don't cite their book, chapter, and verse. They want you to look it up. I know I talked about this earlier this week. Still a push button thing with me, because I do the same whether they're Christians or not. If you're going to cite something, you're going to say something that someone said or something said, or an idea you have, and you're copying off of, or you read an article that spurred you on to further thought, but you don't cite the article. You just put up a Google search saying, well, here's the Google search, go find it yourself. Again, you're being intellectually lazy, and you're disrespecting my time and my energy that I have to put out to actually produce this show or even talk with folks on social media. Because I have to do my research, and when I do my research and I say something, I back it up. I tell you exactly where I read something, and either I agree with them or disagree with them, or give you my thoughts and ideas on that. So it's, again, it's one of those push button things with me, and this is why, at least on the YouTube, now this program always gets the audio on this always gets. I'm recording it right now in Audacity, plus the YouTube video is actually recording it also. But I put this up. I put the daily episodes like this up as podcasts also, and I always want people, if they can't see it, as I'm showing you the article on YouTube, at least you understand that that's exactly what I'm doing. And just talking about podcasting, this is a little side note here. On the Monday the 29th at 11 o'clock in the morning, I will be on an interview on the Castus, a Seriously Simple podcasting site where I host all my podcast episodes now. They have a podcast called Podcast Hackers, and it's going to be about a 30-minute interview, and I've been invited to come on to that show and do an interview, and I sent them all the pertinent information about what I do here on this show. And so I have to find out if it's going to be live or not. I'll talk about it more next week. I'll put some links up and actually put some announcements out on Facebook and Twitter and some other places, and also on the show notes page. I'm going to put a little blurb up there about that, so you can go over if they have it live, which I think they do, or they put it out later. At least you know where to go get the podcast. That's what I'll be telling you. I don't know if it's live, but I'll try to find that out for you. But 29th at 11 o'clock my time, I'll be in an interview. So wish me luck. And I'm looking forward to it. I need more exposure for the show, and when I get interviewed by folks, this just came out of the blue. I didn't request it. This just came out of the blue, so I'm glad of the opportunity. All right. Like I said, I titled the show today, Why the Constitution Matters, DACA, Dreamers, and Immigration. And this first article I'm going to talk about, the Constitution is useless if we don't follow it. And this is something that I talked to folks of my generation who got the whole concept of government wrong, in my opinion. And I'll say that out loud on my show here. When I'm talking to them on social media, I'm not that forthright about them being wrong. I ask questions and answer their questions in a way I know they don't expect me to answer them. And it's amazing to me how that whole process on social media has come about. And I found out this morning watching a Rubin report and I never thought about this before, but the one thing I want to ask Christians, I don't care what denomination you're a part of, the one thing I want to ask Christians not to do is not to look down on folks. That you're holier than thou, because I've run into so much of this. Because I call myself a constitutional or a Christian constitutional warrior, and I preach the gospel and I share the gospel with folks. I don't force, I share. They think that I'm looking down on them, and I'm not. I'm no different than they are, except I'm in a saved state. I'm a sinner just like them. I struggle with sin every day. Just because I've been saved through baptism, just because I'm baptized into Christ, doesn't mean that I'm better than other folks. That I still struggle with sin. I just want to share with them about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that could be your Lord and Savior. And I've been running this attitude, and I don't understand it, because I'm not preachy when I get on social media. But the only time I get preachy sometimes is when I'm on my own show here on YouTube, and that's okay, because this is my show. I can do what I want. But when I'm in chat rooms, I'm very polite. I don't call them names. As far as personal attacking names, I might group them in with progressives, regressives, stuff like that. But I don't personally attack folks in my correspondence in social media. It's not always reciprocated. Matter of fact, 90% of the time it's not reciprocated. I always. It's almost like it's a burn down Dan day some days on social media. But this article here from FEE.org by James R. Harrigan, and I've been told by my regressive friends on Facebook and Twitter that I shouldn't be using FEE.org because it's a far-right libertarian publication. You just can't trust them. And when I asked them if they read the articles I share with them, they won't answer me. And I take that as a no. If you don't tell me in an affirmative, I ask you if you've read it or not. If you haven't told me either way, I'm going to assume that you hadn't, because you didn't answer me yes. And I was told by some folks a long time ago that they'll never read articles out of certain websites because they deem them to be too far right. And they won't even read the articles, run the references to see what they're saying. And yet they want me to believe all their media sites like Think Progress, Mother Jones, Huffington Post, Slate, Salon. They want me to use those, which I do sometimes. I go over and read what they're saying, but usually in short order, not 100% of the time, but usually in short order, I can dispel what they're saying in the article, which to me is kind of ridiculous because, I did it in a few minutes, with common sense, logic, and research. But anyway, FE.org, the Constitution is useless if we don't follow it. And I would even add to that, the Constitution is useless if we, the people, don't make sure that it's followed and enforced. But in order to follow the Constitution and enforce it, we, the people, have to be informed of what it is. Not only what it is, but what it actually says. And most people don't. I've had guys tell me, I got a pocket Constitution. Okay, prove it. You got a pocket Constitution? Prove it. What does it say about this? What do you read this? What do you think it means? Put it back on them. And again, I can be asked questions all day long by regressives, but if I ask a question and the question is framed in such a way that they don't like it, because if they answer the question, it'll condemn them of their ideology, so they're not going to answer it. And I'm not saying I'm on the level of Jesus, but I do take my example from Jesus when the Sanhedrin and those folks asked him, by what authority do you do these things? And Jesus turned it back on them. John's baptism, was it from men or from God? Answer me that, and I'll answer your question. Well, they wouldn't answer him, because either way, they were going to be in Dutch. They're going to be in trouble, no matter which answer they gave. And so they answered him not. So Jesus says, neither do I tell you where my authority comes from. And again, answering questions is a two-way street, especially when they try to box him in on a question. And it wasn't really trying to box Christ in on a question. He just asked, by what authority? Because they thought that they were the authority. And they forgot their place, as the children of Israel are wont to do, and as even some Christians today are wont to do. We forget God's place in our lives. I forgot to turn that off. Sorry about that, folks. I thought I had that on vibrate. Sorry. All right, let's get into this little quick article. The Constitution is useless if we don't follow it. The point of the Constitution is to limit the government, not reinterpret it to mean whatever you want it to mean. Attorney General Jeff Sessions sent the country into a tizzy not long ago when he declared that the federal government would start cracking down on state legal marijuana. This is problematic, but it's a symptom of a larger problem. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution limits the things which the government may concern itself with. Marijuana, indeed any drug, is not on that list. In fact, a great many things that the federal government concerns itself with are not on that list. So how did we get to the point of having federal laws and regulations about marijuana and a number of other things? We have to have a constitutional amendment to ban alcohol. So why doesn't the government need one to ban marijuana? James Harrigan and Anthony Davis discussed this and more on this week's episode of Words and Numbers. And go over to this link, and it's a podcast. And it's really interesting what they're talking about on this podcast. And I encourage you to go over and listen to this. But they are absolutely right. I mean, James Harrigan is absolutely right. Section 1, or Article 1, Section 8 does not allow the government to concern itself with any drugs. That means FDA or anything like that. Any illegal drugs. These are state issues. The states never granted the federal government the right, or the power, I should say, not the right, but the power to govern over these things. But Article 1, Section 8 absolutely gave the federal government the power to govern over immigration. And this is a problem because we have states like New Jersey's governor. New Jersey governor wants to create an entire agency to protect illegal immigrants. And this is an article over at the Daily Signal by Jack Crow. And this was posted on January 16th of this year. Are you kidding me? Create an entire agency to protect illegal immigrants. Protect them from what, pray tell? Probably the federal government. Well, guess what, Governor of New Jersey? Where's your constitutional amendment to strip that power away from the federal government and only give it to the states on immigration? Where is your amendment? This agency, in my opinion, would be unconstitutional at any state level. But you have California, now you have New Jersey going down the same road as California, wanting to protect illegal immigrants, led by their leader of Cory Booker. Illegal immigrants are Americans. And get this, folks, I couldn't believe this when I saw this statistic. CNS News article by Terrence P. Jeffries posted on the 18th of January this year. 57.9% of all illegals caught at the U.S. border, Mexico border, in fiscal years 2017, not Mexican. They're from 111 other countries. And I was like, what? Say, what? 111 other countries, folks. But they tell us that we don't need a border wall to secure our border. Now that still leaves, that's almost 58%, so that still leaves 42% of the illegals caught on the Mexican border are actually from Mexico. And I was like, wow. Only 42.1% of the deportable aliens that the U.S. Border Patrol apprehend along the U.S. border in fiscal year 2017 were citizens of Mexico, according to data collected by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And again, these articles, I love these articles because they give you links to what they're talking about. It just makes me crazy when I go to these other far left regressive websites and they don't cite their sources. They don't cite their sources. Ooh. Anyway, a significant majority, 57.9%, came from 111 other countries. In fact, during the fiscal year 2017, the Border Patrol apprehended deportable aliens along the U.S.-Mexican border who came from 84 countries that are not in the Americas. In fiscal year 2017, according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection spreadsheet, the Border Patrol apprehended a total of 310,531 deportable aliens in all 20 border patrol sectors. These include 9 sectors along the southwest border with Mexico, 8 along the northern border with Canada, and 3 along the nation's coastal border. Of the total 310,531 deportable aliens, the Border Patrol apprehended 303,916, or about 97.9%, were apprehended in the 9 sectors along the southern border with Mexico. So the overwhelming, vast majority, within sneezing distance of 100%, were caught on the southern border. Of those 303,916 deportable aliens apprehended along the southern border, 175,978, or 57.9%, were citizens of countries other than Mexico, and 127,938, or 42.1%, were citizens of Mexico. The top 3 countries that ranked after Mexico having their citizens apprehended as deportable aliens along the U.S.-Mexico border were Central American countries. These were Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, which ranked 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. But India ranked 5th. In fiscal year 2017, the Border Patrol apprehended along the southwest border 2,963 deportable aliens who were citizens of India. In fact, the Border Patrol apprehended more citizens of India in its 9 sectors along the U.S.-Mexico border than citizens of Brazil or Ecuador, which ranked 6th and 7th for having deportable aliens apprehended on the southern border. The People's Republic of China ranked 8th, with the Border Patrol apprehending 1,364 Chinese citizens along the southwest border in fiscal year 2017. To put China ahead of Nicaragua, which ranked 9th, the Border Patrol apprehended 1,057 Nicaraguans along the southwest border in 2017. Among the top 41 countries whose citizens were apprehended by the Border Patrol along the southwest border, 21 were not in the Americas. In addition to India, China, these include Nepal, Bangladesh, Romania, Pakistan, Albania, Vietnam, Somalia, Sri Lanka, excuse me, Kosovo, Turkey, Nigeria, Ghana, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan. Had 11 from Israel, folks. Jordan, South Korea, France, and Hungary. Notably, the deportable aliens from Nepal, Bangladesh, Romania, and Pakistan that the Border Patrol apprehended along the southwest border in fiscal year 2017 exceeded those apprehensions from Colombia, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, and Haiti. Additionally, the Border Patrol apprehended deportable aliens who are citizens of nations outside the Americas more often at the U.S.-Mexico border than at the northern border or the coastal border. And he goes on, he keeps on going down through there. It's a pretty long article. And he has he's got a graph in here with all the stats, apprehensions of deportable aliens along southwest border. And he just goes right on down through there with the whole list there. And it's never ending, folks. We have this flood of illegal aliens, deportable aliens, illegal immigrants trying to cross our southwest border. And 57.9% aren't even from Mexico. They're people traveling through Mexico to come up to our porous border. And how many? How many of these? Pakistan. Pakistan is a Muslim stronghold. Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and India, the top 5. Brazil, Ecuador, People's Republic of China, Nicaragua, Nepal, top 10. Bangladesh, Romania, Peru, Pakistan. 224 out of Pakistan. Colombia, that's top 15. Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, Belize, top 20. Belize? Isn't Belize the place where expats from America go down and retire because of the cheap living down there? And we had 51 people. Maybe they were Americans that retired living down there. I don't know. But it goes on. You keep going down. I'm just looking down through here. I have Somalia, Kosovo, Turkey, Nigeria. I'm just trying to pick out Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Israel. That one's kind of funny to me. 11 out of Israel. Let's keep going. Uzbekistan. A lot of these are mainland European countries. France ranks 39th. United Kingdom is 42nd. Russia's 42nd. They're tied, 8 and 8. But if you go down through here, Syria, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Indonesia. I'm just going down through here to look. There are a lot of these countries in here, now, albeit they're very small as far as the amount of people come from those countries. But there's a lot of these illegals. They're crossing the southern border from Muslim countries that don't have America's best interest at heart. And yet the regressives in our country say we're a bunch of racists because we want to put a wall up. And one of the questions I asked on Facebook today on a, I can't remember if it was common, it was Indivisible post on Facebook. I said, since when is being an illegal immigrant a race? But they call folks like me a racist because we want to put up the border wall and we want to make sure, we want to know who's coming in our country. Just like I want to know who's coming into my house. I don't leave my door open in the house and let just anybody come in here. You know, it doesn't make sense. But that article there, that really surprised me. I did not know the numbers were that skewed. You know, that more people come across the southern border that aren't Mexicans. And they want to keep the southern borders open. Now, talking about DACA, and then I got to start off with this article here. Cory Booker. Illegal immigrants are Americans. Now, I couldn't strip this video off the website. They didn't give you a link to it. And it's a CNN video. And so I was trying to find it before the show and couldn't find it. I didn't have time to do it. And it just, for some reason, and I got an email into OBS. For some reason, I cannot get the desktop audio off of my production video to broadcast through into my streaming computer. It just, I can record it. I can record it like a video clip, and it has the sound on it and everything. But I can't do anything else with it. And so I'm kind of frustrated with that. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But anyway, the Daily Caller has this article by Justin Caruso. He's a media reporter. This was posted on the 17th of this month over the Daily Caller. Booker, illegal immigrants are Americans. Senator Cory Booker said illegal immigrants who come to the U.S. as minors are Americans on CNN Wednesday. Booker argued that 80% of Americans agree that these people who are American citizens in every way but a piece of paper, these folks who fought for us in the military, and I'm going to come back to that, who fought for us in the military, who are our first responders, who are our teachers, who have been part of our community since our earliest years, they deserve better than this. As we move forward, I'm saying right now, I at least as one individual senator, I will not leave Americans behind, he also said, and there's other articles in there. Booker recently made headlines for shouting at Homeland Secretary Christian Nielsen, saying, "I hurt. When Dick Durbin called me, I had tears of rage when I heard about this experience in his meeting. For you not to feel that hurt and that pain and to dismiss some of the questions of my colleagues saying I've already answered that line of questioning when tens of millions of Americans are hurting right now because of what they're worried about right now in the White House, that's unacceptable to me." And as far as I'm concerned, Ms. Nielsen answered some of these questions already. And why should anybody? I don't care if it's the Senate or a House committee. If you've already been asked a question and you've answered that question, I don't see the necessity for those that are being questioned by either the House or the Senate in these committees, where they have to repeat the whole answer again every time a different person asks. Matter of fact, on the advice of most lawyers anymore, because of what's happening with like Michael Flynn, because he got something wrong in a testimony because he said something when he answered this question, and when he answered the same question to somebody else, it was a little bit different. And the same thing happens in investigations. And quite honestly, my advice to folks is you exercise your Fifth Amendment rights. If you're arrested, you get a lawyer. You don't say boo. You do not say boo because honestly, you're emotional at that point, being arrested, and you're not of the mind to protect yourself. So if they say, if you don't have a lawyer, one will be appointed to you, bring them on. I'm not saying a word without a lawyer. Lawyer up. Let them accuse you of, well, if you didn't do anything wrong, that kind of reasoning. In the same way, these congressional, I hope and pray to God I never get called before Congress to testify about something I did or something I'm involved with. Because Cory Booker, he'd lose his mind if he was questioning me. Because if I was asked a question by one senator in that same room, and if the other senator didn't hear the answer, it's on them. They can go back and reread or re-listen to the testimony because it's all recorded and it's all, transcripted. And my short answer would have been asked and answered. Next question. And if the senator or the Congress or the representative wants to get mad at me, let them get mad at me. What are they going to do? Hold me in contempt because I've already answered that question and I'm not going to sit there and give a same answer? I might as well just bring a recorder in and record that answer while I'm giving it the first time, and then when you ask me the second time, I just play the recording. Oh, asked and answered isn't good enough? Here you go. There's my answer. And that's exactly what happened in that hearing. But to call illegal immigrants, and they are, these dreamers that have been here all their lives are not American citizens. Their folks brought them over here illegally. And this is something I'll never understand. The folks broke the law to bring them here. I know the kids didn't do anything wrong, but why are they blaming me and you for their predicament? Their folks put them in this predicament by not coming over here legally. And so since we're talking about this, one of the things that I want to talk about is there's a specific order I think needs to be taken care of here when it comes to amnesty for dreamers, this whole immigration thing, and the border wall. And we'll get to that, but I mean, we're building up to that, and this is important for us to understand. Now, Hans von Spakovsky over at the Heritage Foundation don't believe the myths about dreamers. Now, he posted this on the 16th. This Heritage Foundation is another one of these far-right conservative sites I'm not allowed to use when I'm reporting these things because, God forbid if I use an accurate source, in my opinion, real quick here, side note, I don't use these sources out of hand. I've been doing this radio show, the podcast anyway, from late 2007 to the present day with a few years in between not doing it while I was dispatching because I had just too many hours in the day there. But I got back into it after I got laid off from dispatching, and I haven't stopped since. I've researched these enough in the past that when I see something, I know I can trust it, but I still go back in and verify things. Especially if something looks or sounds wonky, I'll go back and research that a little bit more. Maybe I just misunderstood what they were saying, or maybe the author of the article didn't express it in such a way that my feeble mind could understand it. So I'll go back and redo that. But I'm not going to sit there and vet these sources every single time I use them. I'll read through the article. If there's no contradictions in it and it agrees with previous things I've read about in other sources and stuff like that, enough said for me. And I don't think I need to justify to anybody on social media that I've vetted these sources. I've actually vetted a lot of the regressive sources that get thrown at me. And quite frankly, I still go over and read some of the articles that intrigue me or pique my interest. And I'll read through them. And if there's too many inaccuracies in it, I'll either make a rebuttal video, or I just won't use it at all because it takes too long to rebut the whole thing because of too many inaccuracies in it. And so I do vet my sources, and I'm not going to apologize to you because I use these sources. That's if you don't like it, tough. I don't mean to be blunt totally here, but it's my show. I'm not one of these sycophants that just follows everything hook, line, and sinker. My politics and the way I think about the politics, the way I think about the world has evolved since I was a young man. Some things I've disregarded, other things I've held on to. Or some new things I found out I incorporate into my worldview about things. Because I believe them to be truthful and honest, and this is the way we should be living our lives in society. So don't believe the myths about the dreamers. And there's a lot of things, there's a lot of misinformation going on around the country about this, about DACA and dreamers. The media have done an outstanding job of creating a winsome stereotype of the nearly 700,000 beneficiaries of Barack Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA program. To hear the media tell it, virtually all these young people are in college or already graduated from college. There's no longer those no longer pursuing their studies are serving nobly in the military, launching promising civilian careers, or otherwise earnestly chasing the American dream. Now, let me stop the reading there. I haven't done a lot of research on how many of these dreamers are actually in the military, and if one of these articles say it, I only had time to skim over a lot of these articles this morning because of my technical difficulties. But I don't know how you get into the military, in the United States military, if you're not a citizen or a resident of one of our territories. Matter of fact, we do have, when I was in the Navy, and there were some guys I was serving with that were Filipinos. Now, we do have an exchange program with some countries like the Philippines. I do know that, but on on the whole thing about being in the military, nobly in the military. If they got in the military, they lied about it. If these dreamers were in our, and he's probably going to talk about this in more detail, but dreamers got into schools, there was some lying going on there. There just is. Any recollections they may have of their home countries, we're told, are vague at best. Indeed, they become so fully Americanized, they would be lost if they were returned to their now foreign tongue and culture of their native lands. The characterization of dreamers may be accurate for many, but it is far wide of the mark of many DACA beneficiaries. Its main goal is to generate sympathy and prod lawmakers to grant them legal amnesty. But history shows that every grant amnesty triggers even more illegal immigrants. Before lawmakers make any final decision on the issue, they would do well to take a closer look at those who benefit from DACA. For example, not all entered the country in diapers. The DACA program extended to all who entered the country before they turned age 16. Those who entered the country as teens or tweens are certainly fluent in both the language and the culture norms of their home countries. Indeed, the original DACA application form had a space for the name of the interpreter who helped the applicant complete the English language form. One study estimates that today just under a quarter of DACA beneficiaries are functionally illiterate in English. Another 48% have only basic English ability. You combine them together, that's like 79%? No, 69%, excuse me. 71. I'll get the addition here real quick. 71% either are functionally illiterate in English or have only a basic English ability, which means they have another language that they use. 71%. What about education? The majority of DACA beneficiaries are now adults, but only 49% have a high school education. Well, maybe they're in the armed forces. After all, military service was a qualifying condition for DACA eligibility, yet the Pentagon reports that among the current 690,000 DACA beneficiaries, only 900 are serving in the military. I knew I skipped over that earlier. 900 are serving in the military. That's less than half the number of DACA beneficiaries who have had their eligibility revoked because of criminal convictions and gang affiliations. The popular media-crafted image of the typical dreamer is far from accurate. But the biggest problem with amnesty isn't the question of who gets it, it's who gets it next. Amnesty for people who enter the country illegally begets more people entering the country illegally. It has been proved by our own experiences. In 1986, Immigration Reform and Control Act gave citizenship to 2.7 million illegal aliens. That bill's sponsors claimed it would solve the illegal immigration problem once and for all, yet within 10 years, nearly 6 million more people had entered the country illegally. Amnesty is like a magnet for unlawful immigration. It encourages those wishing to come to America to bypass the highly bureaucratic but legal immigration system and try their luck with a quicker option, breaking the law. After all, if lawmakers grant amnesty once or twice or three times, odds are they'll do it again. Suddenly, illegal entry never looks so good. DACA or Dreamer amnesty would also almost certainly spark a surge of illegal immigration as well. Under current sponsorship rules, known as chain migration, the average new citizen sponsors 3.45 additional immigrants. Therefore, providing citizenship to DACA beneficiaries will lead to millions more receiving citizenship, including the parents of DACA beneficiaries, the adults who were responsible for their family's violation of U.S. immigration laws in the first place. A DACA amnesty would thus doubly undermine the rule of law. When it comes to immigration reform, amnesty should be job last. Congress should focus first on tightening the border security, tightening interior enforcement, improving the legal immigration process. Only when the trends in illegal immigration change for the better should lawmakers discuss how to accommodate those who have no legal justification for being here. And this is where I want to address this. Dreamers should be job last. Secure the border. Get rid of chain migration, make that illegal. get rid of the visa lottery, and then deal with the dreamers and that issue. But border security has to come first, because every amnesty we've had in the past, border security was always promised but never delivered. And I'm tired of those broken promises by the open border folks, which they're in the Republican Party, they're in the Democrat Party, they're specifically in the Libertarian Party. Well, we can't have a state. You know, we're against the state, so if we're against the state, there's no such thing as borders. Well, I disagree with them. I don't hold to that philosophy, because I hold to the biblical philosophy that in Romans chapter 13, where God established the governments. And Madison said in the Federalist Papers, if men were angels, we wouldn't need governments. But we know men aren't angels, folks. They just aren't. So build the wall, secure the southern border, give the enforcement tools like E-Verify for anybody that's already in the country, get rid of chain migration, and get rid of that stupid visa lottery, and start allowing people to legally migrate into this country through the legal process. And part of that enforcement is, and people don't realize this, a lot of folks come over here on visas and overstay their visas, and we never do anything about it. And so that has to be taken care of too before these dreamers are ever even thought of. That if you're over here on a visa and your visa is expired, you get escorted to the airport. You have no right to stay here beyond your visa. My wife, then my fiance back in the 80s, she came over to visit her brother, who we both went to the same congregation over there, the Danoon Church of Christ, and Lori and I got engaged over there, and she was only going to be there 3 months, but her visa was a 6-month visa, so she decided that she wanted to extend her stay because we got romantically involved, and we were engaged to be married, so she stayed up to the end of her visa. But I'm telling you what, she left a couple days before her, I think it was like a week before her visa was up, because we wanted to make sure she got out of the country and back over the United States without any issues. And if there was an issue, we had a few days to take care of it. But trust me when I tell you, England, at least Scotland, I was in Scotland at the time, but the UK that I remember, you didn't overstay your visas. But that's a huge problem here in the United States. This is an article by Eddie Zipperer. I like that last name, Zipperer. Out of the Daily Caller, and this was posted on the 17th of this month. Why Democrats sabotaging DACA compromise. Last September, President Donald Trump rescinded the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals immigration policy, and the Democratic Party went into full hyperventilation mode as if Trump had rescinded oxygen. The Democrats fired out an all-caps email blast saying, on Tuesday, Donald Trump secured his legacy as a champion of cruelty. Democrat National Committee Chairman Tom Perez emailed that the decision was morally repugnant and rooted in prejudice, and Deputy Chair Keith Ellison, not to be outdone by hyperbole, compared it to handing over Jews to the Nazis. Basically, from the Democrats' point of view, Trump was Skeletor, Cobra Commander, and Hitler all rolled into one on that day. Yet a few short months later, the Democrats seem unwilling to give an inch on border security to save DACA recipients. The bipartisan deal presented to President Trump offered only about 1/8 of the border security funding he requested, which prompted him to tweet, "I don't believe the Democrats really want to see a deal on DACA," or DACA, however you want to pronounce that, folks. And DACA is probably dead because the Democrats don't really want it. The president is 100% correct. The Democrats framed DACA as a matter of basic morality, and they've said over and over that everyone is for securing the border. They're being offered everything they want, everything. The deal should be a no-brainer, so why are Democrats dragging their feet and causing the presidential tweeter storms? The answer is simple, and this is so simple in this answer, folks. The congressional Democrats and the party establishment, the political cost of DACA compromise is too steep. One, a compromise allows President Trump and 2 Republican minority houses of Congress to fulfill dreamers' dreams. How can Democrats allow that to happen when they've gone all in on a theory of identity politics that portrays Republicans as mustache-twisting villains who only care about tying morality or minority groups to the train tracks? They need DACA to be a Democrat win, and that won't happen if there's a compromise. 2, a compromise will prove that Donald Trump really is the deal maker that he campaigned as. Enough said on that point. A compromise will allow President Trump to fulfill in bipartisan fashion the signature promise of his campaign, a big, beautiful border wall. 4, a compromise will give President Trump another legislative victory in a very young presidency. 5, the compromise would take away an issue that Democrats want to run on 2017. Now, stop the presses here, folks. The Republicans and Democrats do this all the time. They don't want a problem fixed. They want to kick it down the road because they want to use it as a sledgehammer against their opponents in the next either midterm or general elections, like the presidential elections or the midterm elections. And Republicans do this with abortion. They've done it for years with abortion. Oh, we're the party of pro-life. They never prove it. They always kick it down the road, blame it on the Democrats, especially. And even if the Republicans are in total have majorities in both houses that they can pass legislation at will if they wanted to, they still kick that can down the road. So, and this is what the Democrats do with immigration and things like this, because these are future voters for them. Because all they got to do is go to these immigrants and say, hey, look what we did for you. What are you going to do for us? And that's no joke either. A lot of people scoff at that. Folks, that is no joke. I had a meme up, or I did a thumbnail for a program a month ago or so that had folks climbing over the border wall, walking up a short path to the DNC registration booth for the Democrats. And this is a problem that the Republicans and the Democrats deal with. It's just on different issues. 6, border security hurts the Democrat Party. I want to read this one a little bit. It's true that Democrats see illegal immigrants entering the country as a great block of potential someday voters. We need no ghost to come from the grave to tell us that. But many people don't know that every 711,000 illegal immigrants who crossed the border create a new congressional district that, due to the Permanent Apportionment Act, which limits the House representatives to 435 seats, is taken away from another state. And as an unintended effect of the 14th Amendment, each person, whether they're here legally or illegally, must be counted as a whole person. And this is, and let me say this about the 14th, I'm going to stop reading there. Let me say this about the 14th Amendment. I've studied this. I've watched videos, listened to podcasts, read blog postings on this. This is stretching the 14th Amendment beyond what it was originally intended to be for illegal immigrants this day and age. It really is. So he goes into the apportionment there. So anyway, down to the last paragraph. Democrats are going to fight for clean DACA bill, sans border security measures, even if it means shutting down the government instead of compromising because of the political calculus. Why else would the minority party refuse a compromise which gives them everything they've been screaming for? For Democrats, the DACA compromise is not about immigration, morality, or dreamers. It's about the political cost of real border security, which far outweighs the political benefits of helping President Trump pass DACA legislation. Now, Eddie Zipper is a political science professor at Georgia Military College. Hoorah! And we're getting down to the end here. Let me see where I'm going here. Okay, I got 2 more on immigration, then we'll talk about California real quick for the end of the show. Excuse me. If you haven't seen this video on the news, it was all over One American News Network, I imagine on the lamestream media too. It's a Daily Wire article by Hank Brennan, posted the 17th of this month. It's a video. I don't encourage you to go watch this video unless you have some type of foul language filter on this. Illegal immigrant who murdered 2 cops grins at trial. I wish I could have killed more of these blankety blanks. Now, I watched the video on TV. They beeped out the words and stuff on One American News. I'm telling you what. This guy here, I know he's not typical of every immigrant, but it seems to me that every illegal immigrant that is a criminal, he's typical of. If you understand that line of reasoning. This guy, he needs to be locked away in a hole, throw the key away, and then throw that hole away. Never to be remembered again. This guy shouldn't even be given 2 more thoughts after a comment like that. And, you know, we have the incidents out there in San Francisco where an illegal immigrant had an illegal firearm and killed an American young lady and got off scot-free. Got off scot-free because San Francisco is a sanctuary city. And I'm hoping with, at least with Donald Trump, he has the backbone to stand up to some of these states, which I think he does, and start arresting some of these government officials that are impeding federal investigations into an enumerated power that the states granted him to begin with. I really do. And speaking of which, Daily Signal, a Daily Signal article by Jack Crow, posted on the 16th of this month. New Jersey governor wants to create an entire agency to protect illegal immigrants. Newly inaugurated New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy plans to establish the Garden State as a bastion for far-left policies, including a first-of-its-kind government agency devoted exclusively to protecting the rights of legal and illegal immigrants alike. If you're a legal immigrant, I'm going to stop reading it. If you're a legal immigrant, there are laws already protecting you. But what he's doing here, what Governor Murphy's doing here, is giving himself some political cover, which is whisper thin at best, saying, you know, protecting the rights of the legal and illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants only have basic human rights that we need to respect, but they don't have a right to stay here in the country. They have a right to be treated well. They have a right to an attorney, but they don't have a right to stay in our country. They're illegal. They broke the law getting here. That alone should disqualify them from being here. Murphy, a Democrat and former Goldman Sachs financier who was swept into office on the back of former Governor Christie's historically low approval ratings, told the Washington Post he plans to operationalize the sentiment behind the sanctuary movement by establishing an Office of Immigrant Defense Protection. While a number of Democrat-controlled states have adopted an official policy of non-cooperation with the federal immigration authorities, Murphy is seeking to outdo his progressive counterparts by devoting an entire agency to help immigrants navigate the federal immigration bureaucracy. It would be a place where everybody could call with questions about their status. Murphy told the Washington Post, our guess is it's going to be legal services oriented. Our guess. Doesn't know, he's guessing. One remarkable thing, and you probably have seen this, the rumors that swirl around communities are extraordinary, and it's literally hard to get, particularly if you're undocumented, the right answer to your question. That's when people go back into their shadows, or they go back to their country of origin. Murphy believes he can capitalize on the backlash to Christie's fiscally conservative approach, establishing New Jersey as a testing ground for a progressive movement that gained traction for young voters nationally. In addition to transforming New Jersey into a welcoming state, a term he prefers to sanctuary, Murphy plans to legalize the sale of recreational marijuana, mandate a minimum $15 minimum wage, and institute a millionaire tax. Well, he got 2 out of the 3 right there. As far as states taking over the control of controlled substances like marijuana and legalizing them or not, that's the only one he got out of the 3 right. And all I can say with the $15 minimum wage and instituting a millionaire tax, bye-bye your electoral votes in New Jersey. You're going to have millionaires pouring out of New Jersey with a new millionaire tax. You're going to have people, restaurants shutting down any of these entry-level jobs over New Jersey. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Murphy is literally going to drive New Jersey to the ground, which it's already close to being there anyway, because of the moderate Governor Chris Christie. But Murphy's really going to do a number on New Jersey, and all I can say is, New Jersey, you got who you voted for, and Murphy's not going to do you guys any favors at all. Last article of the day, folks. I thought this was great. This Fox News is reporting this, but there's a lot of other. There's about 24 news outlets I could cite that are reporting this, and so I've read a few of them, and Fox News is pretty accurate. I shouldn't have to say that anymore, and I'm going to quit saying it about the news sources I use. New California movement seeks to divide Golden State in half. I love it. I love it. And this is by Bradford Betts over at Fox News, posted on the 17th. Two men have launched a campaign to divide rural California from the coastal cities, motivated by what they referred to as a tyrannical form of government that doesn't follow the U.S. Constitution or the state one, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. Unlike the failed 2016 campaign to split California into 6 states, the New California movement, founded by Robert Paul Preston and Tom Reed, seeks to consolidate rural California into a district economy separate from the coast. After years of overtaxation, regulation, and monoparty politics, the state of California and many of its 58 counties have become ungovernable. After years of overtaxation, regulation, and monoparty politics, the state of California, why do they do this? And there's a link to a website there. Let me see where that website actually goes. newcalifornia.com is actually the website. And I'll open that up in the link and we'll get to it. Preston and Reed say the citizens of the state live under a tyrannical form of government that does not follow constitutional requirements. There's something wrong when you have a rural county such as this one, and you go down to Orange County, which is mostly urban, and it has the same set of problems, and it happens because of how the state is being governed and taxed, Preston told CBS Sacramento. The founders have evoked Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution as justification for establishing a new economy with a new state constitution. If states that a consensus must be reached by the state legislatures of California as well as Congress to process, the process, according to New California, could take 10 to 18 months. New California movement unveiled a Declaration of Independence earlier this week that called for a free and independent state with full power to establish and maintain law and order and promote general prosperity. Now, let me go over the website because I don't know if they have a state map or not. There was a really good state map, and I don't know if they have it up here or not. Okay, I didn't really get over the site because I was doing a lot of reading. They have all sorts of things here, but basically, it's the coastal cities: San Francisco, L.A., San Diego, and all that. That's where the major population center, Sacramento, the capital of California right now, state capital. Those are all included in what they call coastal California. And the rest of California would make the 51st state. And I don't know if they're going to pull this off because the San Joaquin Valley would be in the New California. And the San Joaquin Valley is still considered the breadbasket of America. Although if they keep continuing on the path they're going, they're going to kill the San Joaquin Valley, and that's going to kill California's economy. because that's one of the major drivers. Not the major, but it's a major driver of California economy behind tech. And I've been through the San Joaquin Valley. It's huge. And back when I was going through the San Joaquin Valley, folks around there used to reservoir winter melt and rainwater. But they're not allowed to do that anymore. Matter of fact, there's been a lot of reservoirs where they've been torn down by state laws because these radical environmentalists trying to save some snail darter or something like that, or trying to reclaim wetlands, that have been dammed up and stuff. It's ridiculous. And honestly, I don't think these liberals understand where their food comes from. And if you kill the San Joaquin Valley, you're going to put a bigger hurt on a hurting economy already in California. So I think these guys are onto something here, separating the rural California out from the cities, and let that coastal California sink or swim on its own. And when they establish the new California, hopefully they put in some judges that are right thinking, and they put in some policies that are conservation minded but not radically environmental, where they conserve water, where they can catch the rain melt off of the Sierra Nevadas and stuff like that from the Rocky Mountains that border their state. Seasonal rains that they get, they can start reservoiring these things so they can irrigate their crops. I've seen pictures of San Joaquin Valley, and it doesn't look like they're hardly irrigating anything there because they don't have enough water to irrigate it. And when I used to drive down through there, I went down through there a couple times when I was a coast-to-coast truck driver, and you come off the Grapevine, that's a steep hill. But you come off that, you come into the San Joaquin Valley, and it's nothing but farms. And I've seen, spray irrigation, I've seen ditch irrigation. Any type of irrigation you can think of was employed there in the San Joaquin Valley, and they had good-looking crops in there. And it amazed me. And it's the same way down in southern Arizona. The irrigation that goes on down there to produce some of the vegetable crops that they produce down there in southern Arizona and southern New Mexico, it just amazes me. Modern technology and how they can turn an arid, almost desert-like region into a prosperous farming communities. And so instead of letting the whole state of California secede from the Union, I think we should, and if you agree with me, you should get a hold of your congressman or congresswoman and tell them you agree with the New California recommendations. And I'll report a little bit more on this in other videos. I got notes in here to do this and what their goals are. I think it's fantastic that they're doing this. I think it would be a good solution to California, and then you really see what the progressive policies will do to coastal California. Honestly, if they allow this to happen, coastal California is going to be smoked. I mean, they're going to go downhill so fast, economically, population-wise, and everything. California's already number one in homeless population in the country. And let me just finish off the show with this comment. Now, I know we didn't talk about this as far as with President Trump and the comment about these countries being crap holes. And that's putting it mildly. What makes a city, a state, county, or country, what causes it to literally descend into whatever level of hell, Dante's hell, that you want to describe? What causes that to happen? There's one factor that is common with all these I'm describing. It's government, folks. What makes these countries over in Africa and what makes the country of Haiti as bad as it is because of the government that's there. There's no freedoms. There's no liberties. People can't own properties down in Haiti. Hardly. And I know I've had friends go down there on mission work, nurses that went down there after the earthquake and everything that were helping folks. The Church of Christ has a presence down there, and they literally, I couldn't believe this. whenever bringing relief supplies into an orphanage there that the Church of Christ was helping and the church was right there, they had to hire security because these gangs would come in and try to steal them blind. And the church was trying to help as many people as they could. They couldn't help everybody. And there was more than just Church of Christ down there trying to help. But it doesn't help when you have foundations like the Clinton Foundation is taking all this money that was supposed to go to Haiti, and none of it went there. And I hope the reports are accurate. They're going to investigate the Clinton Foundation and all their shenanigans that went on at the Clinton Foundation. I really do. I think it's important that this takes place. But it's not the people per se. It's the governments that have taken control of these places and have literally raped these countries of any human capital whatsoever. And Haiti is one of the worst ones in this hemisphere to do that. And it's all because of the freedom and liberties that progressives say are granted to us by government. And our rights come from government too. That's what progressives think. That our freedoms, our liberties, our rights are granted to us by government when they're actually not. Our rights come from God. We naturally have these rights before any government's ever established. And what needs to happen in places like Haiti and these crap holes in Africa is the people need to get educated first. Now I know that down in Haiti they said the average IQ of the citizens down there is like 60. Well, 70 is mentally disabled. And there's a lot of contributing factors. I don't want to get into the whole contributing factor, but nutrition is one of the biggest ones. If as a young child you're not being fed well, you're not getting the nutrition you need, your brain's not going to develop the right way, and your IQ is going to be low. There are studies out there that actually have correlated that. And so, yeah, you got a country that can't even produce its own food, can't afford to buy its food, and the government's living okay. And you got these people that are now malnourished, and you got adults and children that are going hungry, and especially children, they're not growing up with good nutrition. And if you try to get it there, the government just destroys any type of help coming in there and hoards it for themselves and their buddies. And I'm not advocating for an armed invasion there to set up a regime. I'm not. I think that has to come from the people. I don't know what all the answers are for countries like Haiti, but there has to be some type of humanitarian answer to what's going on down there. And it's not to bring them to the United States. That does nothing for Haiti. Allowing illegal immigrants from Mexico does nothing to improve the problems that are happening in Mexico. All it is a relief valve for these countries. The government of Haiti is more than happy to allow the discontent to leave the country and immigrate to another country. They're more than happy because it takes the troublemakers off their hands. They don't have to deal with them anymore. They don't have to deal with them anymore. And that's the same way with a lot of these other countries. The United States has become the relief valve. Instead, we should be educating these folks of these countries in the principles of freedom and liberty that comes from God, not government, that our rights come from God, not government, and that we are endowed with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You know, personal property rights. And that's one of the biggest things a lot of these crap old countries have in common is very hard for individuals to own and profit from any property they actually own, because the government, when they become prosperous, what's stopping the government from coming in and taking what they've made? Nothing. There's no rule of law. There's basically no functioning government to protect the rights of the people at all. And that's what makes them bad countries. I'm not blaming the people to a certain extent. I'm blaming the governments that are in charge. You know, the United States didn't become one of the most prosperous nations in the world because of socialism or fascism or communism. It became that way because of freedoms and liberties, because we had the rule of law that most people practice and live by the non-aggression principle, where I'm going to live my life and I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to steal from you. But if you try to steal from me or try to hurt me, I'm going to defend myself. That includes taking my property unlawfully. And then if we make a contract between each other and you break that contract, I have a legal recourse, the courts, to take your property or to take, get reparations for you breaking that contract. It's called the rule of law, folks. Without those basic ingredients for society and civilization, they don't exist. That's why we have all these crap holes around the world. That's why we have all these oppressive regimes around the world, because they oppress their people. Because these folks, they love power. Power is a corrupting force, and if you have absolute power, it corrupts you absolutely. And so all these folks that are, whether Donald Trump said it or not, I don't really care. I don't. I think the sentiment and what he meant behind that's more important than what he said. And if we allow the regressives in this country to have their way, that we ditch the rule of law, i.e. the Constitution with the federal government, and we start voting in all these socialistic things because Bernie Sanders and his followers like democratic socialism, yeah, we can vote that in, not understanding how they're aggressing against people, not understanding how they're taking people's personal property without their say-so, and forcing them onto government programs that they don't want to be on or participate in, but there's no way to get out of them. There's no opt-out. Why would you want to opt out? Why would you want to opt out all these beautiful, wonderful government programs that have been instituted for your protection? Because I'm an American that believes in freedom and liberty, and if I wanted to be a part of something like that, I'd go join a group that had those characteristics. Wanted health care. If I wanted cheap health care, get rid of the portability laws. Allow me to be part of a group that we can be an economic force and get reasonable rates and dictate the terms of our insurance policies and make it so it's affordable for us and anybody else that might want to join our association. That's the type of freedom I'm talking. I'm talking about freedom that actually helps other people out. I'm talking about freedom, individual freedoms and liberties that lifts all boats, that doesn't oppress people. Government liberty and freedom oppresses people. Government rights, government-issued rights oppress people. Actual God-given rights and freedom and liberty do not oppress people at all. And this is where I see our country going today. I see these regressives have these ideas that, well, true socialism hasn't really been tried yet. Talk to them 150 to 200 million people in the last century that died because of true socialism, fascism, and communism. And come back and tell me that it hasn't been tried yet. It absolutely has, and it's been found wanting, and it's been found a failure. And it's ridiculous. It is totally ridiculous to keep trying to go back to all this stuff that has failed so many times in the past. It's just, to me, it's totally ridiculous, and these people don't even understand it. This is what drives me nuts. These people don't even understand the damage they would cause if they got everything they wanted legislatively that these social democrats want. It's been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your Constitution warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, folks. And we'll see you next week on some new episodes and stuff like that, especially on Monday through Thursday. I upload a new episode every day, real short. Then on Fridays, it's always a live show on Fridays, and then I try to put out some more videos and that. So this Sunday, remember to attend the Church of God's Choice if you choose to go worship God. Have a great rest of the day and a great weekend, and God bless, and we'll see you next week.